The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy opens with a description of the location of Earth in the galaxy and manages to contextualize humanity with a single comment about digital watches. We are ape-descended and think that digital watches are still a pretty neat idea. Adams goes on to say that most humans are unhappy, even those with digital watches. Later, when Arthur Dent is dealing with his arm floating off into space whilst in the throes of a massive improbability field, his first concern is with how he will be able to operate his digital watch. With his jokes about the human obsession with digital watches, Adams is clearly saying something about our fascination with the new and innovative technology. This may not be obvious now since digital watches are less common, but in 1977, when the story was first expressed as a radio play, digital watches were less than a decade old and were just entering into the mainstream. The first digital watch came out in 1970 and would have set you back about $20,000 in today's money. My guess is that Douglas Adams probably thought digital watches were a pretty neat and a pretty stupid idea. Science fiction distinguishes itself from other forms of literature and art by the instrumental role played by technology. Faster-than-light transportation, superintelligence, robots, time travel, advanced weapons, genetics, these can all be used by an author to grapple with what it means to be human and how we should use great power. These are called novum by sci-fi wonks. They are the elements of the story that makes the fictional world different than ours. This is most obvious in things like Star Trek, where warp drives and replicators allow for us to meet all kinds of aliens and reflect on our own human social problems from a significantly dissociated perspective. When aliens are racist, it's easier to see how wrong it is. Take us to a place where humans are all intersex, and the problems with gender stereotypes are eliminated. Science fiction also inevitably comments on the impact of technology itself. Consider the changes to humanity in WALL-E or the Terminator saga's view of artificial intelligence. And, of course, sometimes technology in science fiction can just be there for the awesome. So let's look at the technology in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and ask, how is Douglas Adams using technology? What is he using it to say? And then, what is he saying about technology? Spoilers for all Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, films, TV, and radio shows. Part 1. What is Douglas Adams saying with technology? So what novum does Douglas Adams use in these books? In terms of technology, all of it. Teleporters, body modification, super intelligent AIs, time travel, laser guns, almost none of it is remarkable. Despite how advanced and ubiquitous technology is, it usually comes off as mundane and often annoying in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Teleportation drains your energy, FTL drives make you nauseous, the literal end of the universe show is disappointing. Ford is impressed by the Heart of Gold spacecraft, something that can take you anywhere in seconds, but then both he and Zaphod act all nonchalant. Arthur marvels at the two sons of Magrathea, his first time on an alien planet. Then Marvin yucks his yum.
I've seen it. It's rubbish.
Ford and Zaphod are truly impressed by Disaster Area's black ship, but this is not at its technology, not so much as at its cool aesthetic and design. No one bats an eye at hyperspace, or time travel, or giant spaceborne megacomputers. Zaphod walks out of the total perspective vortex unfazed. Even the gods of Valhalla are just kind of there. But this is science fiction which is almost embarrassed by high tech. Why? Why make a science fiction series only to marginalize the role of technology? Obviously, a lot of this is comedic. It allows for some good jokes. It's funny to spend a year dead for tax reasons, or that a spaceship looks like an Italian bistro, and especially to have a clinically depressed robot. And of course, some of it is just satirizing other sci-fi. But I don't think that's it. I don't think Douglas Adams placed this book in space just to make jokes with aliens and spaceships in them. I also don't think Adams is using technology to make allegorical statements about our society. Obviously, this isn't the morality theater of Star Trek. It's not the dark prophecy of the three-body problem. It isn't the anthropological genius of something like the left hand of darkness. It's about ideas. Adams is conveying a philosophical perspective, and what I think is really interesting is how Adams is able to do this in such an abstract but direct way, without it feeling preachy or patronizing. We don't get into the question of the meaning of life from Arthur's struggle to find meaning after the destruction of the earth. We engage with it very directly, but from a unique perspective. Instead of just raising questions about meaning, we are told what the meaning of life is. It's not 42, it's basically that there isn't one. And the characters don't really care. Our expectations are utterly undermined. It's very unsatisfying. But we can't deny the importance of this because it was so funny. Another example might be the man who rules the universe. He is more or less a solipsist. He won't believe anything that isn't immediately obvious to him. He only believes his own eyes and ears. This is a direct invitation to reflect on epistemology. How do we know what we know? Again, our expectations are thrashed. It is very unsatisfying this time as well. We've spent all of this time, honestly, 2 books, looking for this man who rules the universe, even though for most of that time that we didn't know that's what we were looking for. And when we find him, he's a man in a shack. I think it's still quite thought-provoking. Trillian says she thinks the universe is in good hands. And Trillian is always right. Adams is telling us that his concern with power is not with the character or biography of rulers, but their critical thinking. He is saying that they should be extremely skeptical. He goes there again in So Long and Thanks for All the Fish with Wonko the Same, who directly tells us to drop our biases, not judge on instinct, but think critically. And the reason I think we don't roll our eyes at this is because of who is saying it and where. I mean, we're being told this by a man called Wonko, and he has carpeted the outdoors. But I don't want to get too deep into the messages themselves. My point here is that Adam is using this genre, science fiction, to express his philosophy directly. He wants not only to raise the issue, he takes a philosophical position and he communicates it, sometimes pretty explicitly, but without it feeling like we are listening to a teenager who's just read the Tao of Pooh. I think very few artists have come close to being able to do this. Obviously, there is the absurdist element here, but it is also profoundly dark and comedic. The only other author that I can really compare Douglas Adams to, particularly in the first 2 books, is Lewis Carroll. Alice in Wonderland is absurd, it is funny, and it is pretty deep in terms of logic and language. It's something of an anthology, throwing different characters, settings, and ideas at you, one after the other. But it never gets wacky or silly. I mean, it takes its absurdity seriously. There is a darkness which seems to ground it in reality. It raises big ideas, but remains engaging, generally through humor. So I think Adams is doing the same thing. But instead of the obviously contrived dream world of Wonderland, we get there with science fiction using technology.
Part 2. What is Douglas Adams saying about technology in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
From a surface reading of the series, you might think that Adams is anti-technology. First, the Earth is destroyed. We meet a clinically depressed robot. Our heroes become stuck on a ship with autopilot aimed at the sun, with a broken teleport machine. We get the psychotic supercomputer of Hactar with its supernova bomb, the Guide Mark II, which, spoiler alert, destroys the Earth in all universes. But we also get the Guide itself, and towels. Douglas Adams loved technology. I have never encountered an author who literally tells you the brand and model of computer he wrote the book on. He even tells you the software and printer. In his foreword to A Salmon of Doubt, Stephen Fry says, "Being in an expensive hotel, high bandwidth internet connections are available in each room, and I have just watched a 2-hour film on my computer showing Steve Jobs, Apple's CEO, making his keynote address to the Macintosh Expo in San Francisco. The Emperor of Cool has just unveiled the new iMac, and I haven't been able to call up or email Douglas to talk about it. A new revolutionary piece of sexy and extraordinary Apple hardware, and Douglas won't get to see it. He won't have played with an iPod or messed around in an iPhoto." To anyone who knew Douglas, and I'm including in this his millions of readers here, the misery and frustration of this will be appallingly evident. It is dreadful for him because he has missed new stuff. And it is dreadful for us because the new stuff will never now be celebrated by the acknowledged poet of new stuff. You see, I want to know what to think. I want to know what the new machines look like. Yes, I can use my own eyes and my own sensibility, but I have got used to the superior insight offered by Douglas. He would have offered the exact epithet, the perfect metaphor, the crowning simile, not just on the subject of new stuff, of course. He would have found a way of linking the amiably odd behavior and character of spectacled bears both to familiar human experience and to abstract scientific thought. Much of the world that we move in has been seen through Douglas's eyes and become clearer. Which is to say, the very confusion and absurd lack of clarity of our world has become clearer. We never quite knew how conflicting and insane the universe was, or how ludicrous and feeble-minded the human race could be, until Douglas explained it in the uniquely affable, paradoxical, and unforced style that marks him out for greatness. Adams' enthusiasm for new technology is expressed by Ford when he realizes what is powering the Heart of Gold.
I think this ship is brand new, Arthur.
How can you tell? Have you got some exotic device for measuring the age of metal?
No, I just found this sales brochure lying on the floor. The universe can be yours. And look, I was right. Sensational new breakthrough in improbability physics. As the ship's drive reaches infinite improbability, it passes through every conceivable point in every conceivable universe almost simultaneously. You select your own re-entry point. Be the envy of other major governments. This is big league stuff.
It looks a hell of a lot better than that dingy Vogon ship. This is my idea of a spaceship. All gleaming white, flashing lights, everything.
Absurd as it is, the improbability drive isn't completely baseless. You know, quantum mechanics, right? In a way, Douglas Adams has found a way to drive his plot and his story not only on absurdity, but on the scientific absurdity of fundamental physics. Big league stuff indeed. But that is about it for enthusiasm for high-tech in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I mean, Arthur is much more interested in the aesthetics of the Heart of Gold compared to the Vogan constructor fleet. There is not much hard science fiction here at all. The series seems to whinge about technology more than anything else. The characters can hardly tolerate Marvin. They outright hate Eddie, the Heart of Gold's computer character. In fact, there are straight-up complaints about technology. In So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, Ford talks about his vendetta against the salesman who sells junky little machines that never work properly, or when they do, perform functions that no sane man would require of them. Earlier in that book, Adams drops a small rant about answering machines. He went across to the telephone machine and fiddled and fumed with all its buttons for a while, because it was one which was particularly recommended by Witch magazine and is almost impossible to use without going mad. This is the poet of new stuff? What's going on? Well, Adams is obviously frustrated by technology, not science. Wonkel the Sane is our scientist in the series, and he comes off rather well. Not the technology itself. The bistromathic drive is ridiculous, but it works exceptionally well. All the supercomputers work. Marvin works. Marvin has the brain the size of a planet, and he can use it. Problem with Marvin is, well, it's the marketing division of the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation who gave him his personality. And it is no coincidence that we learn about this division in a sales brochure. Adams has a huge problem with the marketing of new technology. Marvin has personality problems because he is over-engineered, like the junky little machines Ford was complaining about. The guide itself says of these machines that it is very easy to be blinded to the essential uselessness of them by the sense of achievement you get from getting them to work at all. There's the poet of new stuff. Ford goes on to describe how this guy is selling advanced music substitute systems for their restaurants, elevators, and wine bars, or if they didn't have restaurants, elevators, and wine bars yet, to artificially accelerate their civilization growth until they bloody well did have. He then talks about how bankrupting these buggers would save civilization as we know it. And this, I think, is actually a relic of the radio series where there is an entire episode or two on a planet ruined by marketing. Arthur walks around on this planet, dealing with the post-apocalyptic effect of intense footwear marketing. The land bounces under your feet because of the centuries of layers of disused running shoes. And improbably, but not coincidentally, it is on this same planet that we find an enormous statue of Arthur Dent throwing his teacup in anger at the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation Nutramatic Drinks Dispenser. This machine perfectly epitomizes Adams' concerns with marketing masquerading as innovation, making new stuff when the old stuff worked just great. Kettles and teapots work just fine. They do not need to be improved, but they are cheap, and they last for decades, so you don't sell a lot of them. Adam's frustration with this kind of thing is Arthur's frustration with the Nutramatic machine, and the consequences are severe. The Nutramatic machine takes up all the ship's resources, almost getting everyone killed, in order to figure out how to make Arthur some tea. A task so simple, you don't need a set of instructions for it. However, I do note that Douglas Adams actually did provide us with a set of instructions for making a good tea, which is reproduced in A Salmon of Doubt. Adams gets pretty explicit with his concern with market forces and innovation in Mostly Harmless, with the Guide 2.0. The original guide worked very well. Its content needed updating, but its technology really didn't. The new guide is much more lucrative because it's pan-dimensional and it transcends time, allowing you to make one and just sell it billions of times. And this is basically what cloud computing is, right? I really wish Douglas Adams was still alive, but sometimes I am glad he has not seen where we are now. I think he would have loved the iPad, which he basically predicted, and many other things. But we are basically in the world I think he feared. The marketing division has taken over. In the last book of the series, Mostly Harmless, we find Arthur Dent on the planet Lamuella, working happily as a sandwich maker. We learn that Arthur now has a clockwork watch. Lamuella technology seems to be at the Iron Age, and Arthur's daughter, Random, is having a hard time adapting. She's puzzled by the watch and asks, "Why is it all hardware? How can you have technology without software? Everything has a chip in it. We don't just have smartphones, but smart fridges,
Smart deodorant.
and of course, this happened. You don't need to spend $249.99 plus tax on a smart tea maker. You don't need a smart fridge. You don't need a digital deodorant. You don't even need a digital watch. Clockwork watches work well. They are not low technology. They are in fact very high technology. It's just old technology. And we still use them. In fact, if you were trying to make a clock to last 10,000 years, you would use cogs and gears, not chips and wires. And this idea of good technology over advanced or lucrative technology is what the whole towel thing is about, isn't it? You'd expect there to be something like a Doctor Who's magic pen, or a tricorder, or a lightsaber to be what you need to brave the wilds of the cosmos on less than $30 Altarian a day. But turns out a towel, because of its multiple uses and psychological advantages, is the most useful thing to have. Okay, nowadays, sure, it makes sense that we have our time told by some kind of computerized device that will have software. But remember, the first digital clocks did not. The first digital clocks were actually analog. I have a small child who's learning math. She's very good at arithmetic. But the other night, she wanted to know how long it was till bedtime at 8 o'clock. I showed her my phone, which read 7:47 on the digital clock, but she still didn't know how long that was. She had to do the math to figure it out, and I made her do the math to figure it out because she was learning it. And it took her a few minutes. And I couldn't help remembering Douglas Adams. And I couldn't help thinking if we had this analog clock with hands, I could have just pointed her to the distance from the minute hand to 12 and say that long. That part of an hour.
But if you think about it, I mean, the first digital watches, which were, you look at a regular watch with hands, and you've got a pie chart. You remember the time when we used to get very excited about pie charts being the thing that computers did for us? No, what we want is not something you just glance at and see what the time is. We want something that you've got to go into a dark corner and put down your suitcase and press a button in order to read, oh, it's 11:43. Now, what is, how long is that before 12 o'clock? And this was progress. And it's really, it is the most sort of charming and the delightful aspect of human beings, that we keep on inventing things that we've already got right once.
So, it is some small solace to his untimely death that Douglas Adams didn't live to see NFTs and the Cybertruck or the smart litter box. Like Stephen Fry, I desperately want the poet of new stuff to help me articulate how lots of this new stuff is probably the junky little machines that will end civilization. Because of course, we are doing it. We are racing to build robots with genuine people personality. We will build the Guide 2.0. And there is a good chance that it kills us all. Even though the Guide 1.0 is extremely good and free to use. But we are the people who put instructions on toothpicks. And we are making this. So what do we do? Again, we can turn to Douglas Adams, from whom I have gleaned 5 pretty neat ideas. Number 1, well, it's right there on the cover. Number 2, remodel your home, install a lawn in your living room, and hang paintings on the outside. Number 3, call Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos, collect, and connect them to the London freaking speaking clock somehow. Number 4, get a beach house. Number 5,
Really is going on is so absurdly remote that the only thing to do is to say, hang the sense of it and just keep yourself occupied. Science has achieved some wonderful things, of course, but I'd far rather be happy than right any day.
And are you?
No. That's when it all falls down, of course.
Pity. It sounded like quite a good lifestyle otherwise.
thanks for watching, and happy Towel Day!